Wow, thank you, Maura. It's beautiful. Jana Stansfield's song. It's a revolutionary thought, isn't it? We are one. It's a thought that we all have the opportunity to live into each and every day when we're faced with the things that we're faced with throughout our culture, throughout our political scene right now. It's a revolutionary thought. In fact, have you noticed like this whole notion of revolution seems to be everywhere lately? Let me see. There's the urban revolution where everybody is moving into the cities and cities are growing exponentially. And then there's the small business revolution where people no longer are working for corporations or more often working for small businesses. And then Ariana Huffington, she has, of course, the new sleep revolution, a revolution that's so exciting it puts you to sleep. She wrote a new book called that, right? So there's all of these revolutions, but the one that most has captured my attention lately, perhaps you've gotten on board as well, is the revolution that's about 250 years ago, the American Revolution. There's a Broadway show right now that is a smash sensation called Hamilton. How many of you have heard about that? Just yeah, about half of you. Great. So tonight, the Tony Awards are happening, and the Tony Awards are the awards for the Broadway plays, and Hamilton has been nominated for more Tonys than any show in the history of the Tony Awards. It is a hip-hop, multiracial rendition of the story of the Founding Fathers, particularly Alexander Hamilton. And I've just been captivated with it. My son, who has some learning disabilities and a memory dysfunction, can just verbatim rap the first 3 songs without missing a beat. It is it's really extraordinary. I tweeted that to Lin-Manuel. So far I haven't heard back from him yet. I guess he's a little busy. So I'm really kind of all into this and enjoying it with my son. And as I've been preparing for this talk, I'm thinking about the revolution that really most inspires me and most gets me on board is the new human revolution. The revolution that we as new practitioners of new thought spirituality stand for. And that is a revolution around this whole notion that we are one. So when I looked at the American Revolution, as I've, all into this Hamilton thing with my son, what I saw is that the American Revolution actually only occurred over the course of 8 years, 1775 to 1783. It was an 8-year period, so I thought, well, let's look and see. I'm being all that about that we have this new human revolution going on. Let's look and see what's happened over the past 8 years in American history now. And in fact, if you go back 8 years from now, what you'll see is after 246 years after the ending of slavery, then 100 years after that, black people were given the right to vote. 44 years after that, the United States elected its first African-American president. 44 years after black people had the right to vote. It's extraordinary. And then 45 years after the Stonewall riots, which is socially largely the demarcation of the beginning of the gay rights movement, the Stonewall riots in New York City. 45 years after that, the Supreme Court of the United States decided to recognize marriage for all people, recognizing that love in all its forms should be honored and recognized. Which was particularly special to me, my beloved sitting down there. And Christina Mariah, the director of our children's program, is getting married almost as we speak in the next hour or so to her beloved Mickey. President Obama, in his speech announcing the Supreme Court ruling and decision, said that all Americans have the opportunity to experience, when all Americans are treated equally, we all have the experience of being more free. Right? Isn't that great? And then we have, so then 96 years after women had the right to receive the right to vote. Wait, what? We have a female nominee for a major political party in the presidential candidacy right now. So wherever you are on any of those issues, this isn't about the political issues, it's to say, look at the social revolution that we are in the face of. The American Revolution was a revolution about freedom from government, freedom of self-government. Our revolution, a revolution in consciousness, is about freedom from the tyranny of our own ego. And that's something that we can stand up for, isn't it? And yet, with all of these amazing social changes, just in the last 8 years, you've got to look and see, that's pretty extraordinary. the first black president, gay marriage being recognized, the first female president. It's extraordinary. Just in 8 years' time, I would say that is a revolution. And still, 2015, a black man was more likely to be shot, 5 times more likely to be shot by a police officer than any other American. In 2015, the incidence of homicides against gays and lesbians was higher than at any other time in recorded history. And of course, we have to look to see, if you haven't seen the news yet this morning, there were many, many gays and lesbians in Orlando in a club shot to death last night in a hate crime. So here we are, right, this new human revolution, and we're in the face of these extraordinary, difficult circumstances. How do you sit with that? How do you integrate that when you have a commitment as a new thought, practitioner of new thought spirituality that says, we are one, you and I are one, and yet these horrible things are happening in our midst? How do you sit with that? I want to give you a frame for it, a frame for understanding it and, in fact, transcending it. Because you know in your own personal life, in your own spiritual walk, when you take on a new commitment, a new area of consciousness that you're committed to growing in, and you say, I'm going to be more patient. What happens? Everything, right? I'm going to be more loving to the people in my life today. I'm going to show more loving kindness and more patience. What happens? You lose your crap about 5 minutes later. Right? What is that? Now, I want you to understand that on the global scale, any time in consciousness that there is a breakthrough, a calling forth of new consciousness, what happens is that anything and everything unlike it will emerge to be healed. Do you understand that? So we have a black president, and we have more homicides of black men by the police than any other time in history. We have, gay rights and acceptance of gay and lesbian marriage. And we have more violence against gays and lesbians, right? We have our first female president. I don't know, again, how much you follow the news. The situation at Stanford University. A candidate. Did I say president? Twice. So let's just pretend I'm giving this talk in January. Nominee. Thank you. It's a sticky situation because the unity movement does not take a stand on political issues, and I don't agree with that. I believe that all of us who are spiritual, spiritual seekers, spiritually awake, alive and committed to the values of the New Thought movement need to be speaking that, whether it's about politics or it's about social issues or if it's about what's happening in your own family. We've got to be living the truth of what we believe, the truth of what we know. So yes, nominee. What's also happening at Stanford University? So we have the first female nominee for president, and at the same time, a young man who sexually assaults a woman at Stanford is given, an unconscious woman is given a 6-month prison sentence because the judge said it might cause too much hardship on the young man to give him a longer sentence, right? So we have these dualities, right? At the same time that there's this emergence and this incredible social change, also what's emerging are these tragedies, these difficult things, and you can't wrap your head around it. What's ours to do in the face of that, to borrow the wisdom of Gandhi, is to look right at it and say, I am that. I am the shooter in Orlando last night. Where in my heart am I separating myself? Where in my heart am I holding hatred to you because you don't think like I think or you don't live like I think? Where am I in my heart holding separation between you and I because of some way that I'm judging you? Some way that I'm seeing myself as better than you because of what I think and what I believe or how I live? Where am I in my heart building walls that separate us rather than bridges that connect us? See, our charge as spiritual people committed to a world of oneness, a world that works for all people, is to eradicate that part of myself where separation exists, to elevate my own consciousness and the consciousness of those people around me so that this emergence of the new human can continue to unfold and, in fact, can grow and flourish. Do you know that Nikola Tesla, one of my favorite New Thought thinkers and scientists, talked about the cell phone in 1923? 1923. He said there will be wireless communication all around the world through, what did he say, telegraph and telephony or something like that. Wireless communication that will change the course of humanity. Right, 1923. So here it is, 2016, and we can all say together, I envision a world that works for everyone. I envision a world where there's oneness that is valued more than separation. Because the seeds we plant today, we may never see the fruit of in our lifetime. I'm willing to commit my life to creating a world where love prevails. The language of the new human revolution is love. We'll achieve that when you grow in consciousness, and you, and you, and you, and me. When we grow in consciousness, and we use that phrase all the time in the unity movement, and yet some of you are newer to the movement. You know, some of us have been around for 20, 30 years inside of unity. The movement itself is only 110, 115 years old. It's a new movement. So I want to be sure you understand it. There's a model up on the screen here that it's a model that I teach in my courses, that shows what I mean by moving through the levels of consciousness, getting out of survival consciousness that says I'm the victim of anything, and that I am separate from you, getting into, if you grow in consciousness, then you can get really stressed out because you recognize you have some say in this. You're not the victims of things, but if you work really hard, maybe it'll get a little better. And so you work really hard. And you feel angst, and you feel stress. Anybody can relate to that? That's pretty much where most of American mainstream consciousness is. High survival or low stress, meaning between those two. So right in the upper levels of survival, the lower levels of stress consciousness. We're driven, we're chaotic, we're overwhelmed, we're busy, and we most often, too often, see the problem is out there. But as we continue to grow in consciousness, what happens? We recognize there's no out there. There's me and how I am relating to the circumstances around me. There's me and how I'm making choices aligned with what I value and what I love. And I get transformed. And then, in maybe our children's lifetime, I don't know, maybe sooner, we get into transformation consciousness that we all just walk around saying we're all one. We don't have to worry about the political debates. We don't have to worry about violence in our streets. We're just all one. You're gay, that's great. You're straight, that's awesome. We need straight people. I recognize love in all its forms. We're just like, yeah, it's great, we're all one. And we make decisions along that way. That's what we mean by the transformation of consciousness, the elevation of consciousness, unconditional love, equanimity, peace, and joy. May we all live there. But how do we get there? Right? How do we engage in our day-to-day practices in such a way that our consciousness evolves? And I don't know, but I've really committed my life to sorting that out. And so I've got two for you today to think about. One is, and it's said so often now it's cliche, so I'm sorry, but one is just to really get clear on what your ideas and your passions are and bring them forth into the world. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of the Unity Movement, said ideas are God's currency. And I will add, and our job is to cash in on them. Ideas are God's currency. You all have ideas. You have ideas that you want to bring forth into the world, but you have all of these reasons that you can't do that. All of these justifications for why it's not the right time. Your passion is divinely ordained from God. It is. It's divinely ordained from God. How do you know how God wants to express you? It's what you think about and what you care about. And then you bring that forth in the world. Lin-Manuel Miranda is the author and the score writer, composer Yes, I am a trained professional. He is the author and the composer of the Hamilton musical. Lin-Manuel Miranda, he is a Puerto Rican man. His parents were Puerto Rican immigrants to this country. In fact, his father came to America for his postdoctoral studies and had to learn English while he was doing his postdoc. Yeah, a man who's got some passion. Lin-Manuel went on vacation to Mexico with his wife, and he took along this light reading, a 400-page book by Ron Chernow called Alexander Hamilton, the biography of Alexander Hamilton. And by the time he got to the end of the second chapter, he's like, oh my God, he was riveted with this story. He's like, I can't wait to see who made a musical out of this. So he pulls out his phone, he Googles it, there's no musical. He says to his wife, honey, what do you think about making a musical about Alexander Hamilton? She's like, yeah, that'd be interesting. And so he keeps reading, and he's really into it, and his wife really doesn't like musicals, so he knew she was a good litmus test. And then it came to him. The language of the revolution needed to be hip-hop, because we have to eradicate the distance between this 250-year-old story and my life today. And the cast has to be black and white and Hispanic and Asian. And so he created this thing, and he said to his wife, all right, so what if I do this musical and I write it in hip-hop and rap? She's like, oh, that'd be cool. And that's when he knew. So you have and that's what he did. He took this thing and he wrote it. You have your idea, but you think, oh, I can't do that. Lin-Manuel wrote that piece for 6 years. One song took him 1 year to write. So it's not like your passion is like, oh yeah, one and done. It's not like a one-night stand. It's got to go a little deeper than that. You know what I'm saying? It's got to kind of own you in some way. Lin-Manuel was a part-time English teacher at actually the high school that he was a student at in New York City, and a part-time playwright. He had won one Tony Award before, but he was kind of just this guy doing this thing in New York, and he committed 6 years of his life to creating this. Last year in 2015, he won the MacArthur Genius Award, and tonight he will be at the Tony Awards with more Tonys being nominated for his show than ever in history. Now maybe you're thinking, well, Jackie, that's fine, but that's just too big of a deal. I can't do all of that. That's like too big, cultural impact. I get it. I get it. So here's what I did. About 8 years ago, interesting, you might want to look in your own lives over this past time frame, I decided that I had this career that I really loved and a great job, and I made good money and I was well respected, but I had this calling, right? This thing, I wanted to be a teacher. It started right here on this platform at Unity on the River. And I started teaching and I started speaking. And over the course of that time, my life has changed completely. I'm traveling around the world. I've done a TED Talk. I've written 2 books. I've got a chapter in 2 or 3 other books. I've taught hundreds and hundreds of people the principles of how to connect with that desire, because it's your communication from God, and bring it forth into the world. And I know some of you today have that as well. And you're like, yeah, but I can't change my career. I can't change my job. I'm too far into it. Okay, I got it. There's someone who's a graduate of one of my programs, the Life Design program, who took on expressing her desire just as a project, just as a hobby. Lisa, how do you say your last name? Palazzi. What? Palazzi. Lisa Palazzi, thank you. Lisa Palazzi is a graduate of my Life Design program, and in the course of Life Design, you have to really get present to what you're passionate about and bring it forth. She's passionate about the 12-step recovery movement because it's impacted her life. She's a neonatal nurse, and she has to hold babies who are getting clean and sober because their mothers are addicted. She cares for those babies, and she's seen it in her own life and her personal life through her family as well. And she's also an incredibly talented photographer. So in the course of 3 weeks, folks, she put together this book that is an interpretation of the 12 steps with her photography in it. It's extraordinary. A single project by a single person that she is now creating as a fundraiser for treatment services for people with substance abuse and addiction. So it doesn't matter, so you're not Lin-Manuel and you're not gonna go create this earth-shattering musical, and you're not like me, you're not gonna go change your whole career and everything. But it doesn't matter. You've got no reason to not be bringing forth what God wants to put in you. So I wanna ask you, how many of you right there today are like, God, I wish I didn't come to church today. Not because the music isn't great or because my talk is so bad, but you're like busted. You're like busted because you know you've got that thing where God wants to express through you and you just haven't brought it forth. So who's willing to raise your hand and tell me that that's the truth for you? All right, great. Everybody else, great. Seth, come on up here. I can't see. I don't have my glasses on. Who's that? I thought it was Diane. Diane, who else? All right, Diane, come on up here. And who else? Great. Come on up here. And just because I'm in the dumb air, Matthew, God, I sound like I know you. All right, so not like the answers are here, but I want you to have a concrete representation from God, right? That this is your time to bring forth what is in you. So any of you have it like it's a business that you kind of want to take action on, but you're not doing that? Yeah, okay, great. So this one's for you, conscious entrepreneurs. I have a chapter in that book. And who is it I just don't have time to bring it forth. I want to, but I just don't have time. Great, that one's for you, calming the chaos. And there we go, time for a change. So, what's yours to do is to put this on the freaking front of your desk and be like, this is my sign from God that now is the time. Are you willing to do that? Yeah. If not, give the book away to someone who is. All right? Great. Thank you.
Thank you. You
Awesome. So we did that. You didn't know there was going to be door prizes at church today, did you? All right. So now, for the rest of you that are in this room that are just if one more person talks to me about passion and ideas, I'm going to puke. Right? So who are you? Come on, tell the truth. Jackie, I just don't have it going on with the passion and the ideas. I come to church, I love the church, but I just don't have that going on. It's fine. It's fine. Actually, check this out. 1 Corinthians 12, 4 through 6. There are many different gifts, but one Spirit that animates them all. There are different ways of service, but one Lord. There are many different kinds of working in the world, but in all of them and in every one, there is one God doing the work. So it doesn't matter if you're not going to be one of those, torch-bearing, I got it all going on, come follow me. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be that. What you've got to do is if you don't have that thing, that idea, that passion, get behind somebody who does. That's what's yours to do. Get behind somebody who does have it. Because behind every person who has that great idea, there are thousands of people that have to get on board. That's how we're going to create this movement more fully. That's how we're going to actually make this revolution occur. There's some social science research that I find really troubling. It was done by Bronnie Ware in 2009, and some of you may know it. She researched the 5 top regrets of the dying. And 2 of those top 5 regrets are, I wish I didn't work so hard, and I wish I would have spent more time on what was important to me. And I find that really troubling because I want to know that the people in my life and in this community and that me, myself, that all I do is spend time on what's important to me. What else is there? Daytime television? Candy Crush on Facebook? Word with friends? Stop it! It's crazy. So I don't care if you think you don't have that thing. Get behind someone who does. I don't want anything more than to be thoroughly used up when I die. To borrow from George Bernard Shaw. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die. All I want to do is commit myself to what's important to me. And what's important to me is that we create a world where everyone is engaged in what matters to them. We create a world where love prevails. We can do that together. We can do that together when everyone is willing to say, I'm engaged in what matters to me. And it doesn't matter what your freaking job is. One of my best friends from childhood, his name is Tom Haynes. He's a VP of hospitality for Lowe's Hotels in Florida. I got to call him, actually, since the Florida thing. And Heather and I visited him a few years ago, and he walked us around his hotel, and he knew the name of he's the VP of hospitality for a huge hotel. He knew the name of the lady making bread in the back of the kitchen, the guys who were bringing out the glasses in the hospitality. He knew everyone's name, and he said to us over lunch, Jackie, I've never worked a day in my life. Big, huge smile when he's saying, I've never worked a day in my life because my job is just to make people happy, and that will never be work for me. It's not about what you're doing, it's about the consciousness with which you are doing it. So it doesn't matter where you plug in. What matters is that you plug in. So there's two ways for you to get out there and create this new human revolution. One is to get out there and discover your passion, express your passion, because I know God has already put it on your heart. And if you're like one of those, hey, Jackie, I just don't have it, great, that's fine. Your job then is to get behind someone who does. For every Jefferson or Hamilton, Einstein, for every person who was out there with a great leading idea, they needed thousands of people behind them to make that a social movement, to make that a world movement. In fact, I'll borrow a quote from Albert Einstein, who said, we need a revolution in our thinking. We need a revolution in our acting. In fact, we need to have the courage to revolutionize our relationships between nations. And I will say at this time in our history, even within our nation. Amen. The thinking of yesterday will not do today, and it will be sorely insufficient to get us where we need to be tomorrow. Lin-Manuel Miranda, the composer and author of Hamilton, had the opportunity to perform at the White House, and to do the Hamilton show at the White House. And after his performance, he said to Barack Obama, how do you put up with the scrutiny and the criticism? How do you live in the face of that all the time? And Barack said, yeah, it doesn't really bother me, because I know I'm going to be measured with a yardstick much longer than I will ever see. At the end of Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton is reviewing his life after he's been shot in the duel in New Jersey. He's quickly reviewing his life, and he says, legacy, what is a legacy? It's the seeds that you plant in a garden that you'll never get to see. So I ask you today, what's your legacy? As we're willing to rise up together as one community, we will together create this next revolution, this revolution in consciousness, this revolution where the language is love. So let's take that thought into some time of meditation.